November 1987, Chicago, Illinois. An ordinary evening news broadcast was playing on television. The anchor was reading sports news, and nobody thought anything was wrong. Then suddenly the screen began to shake. The signal started breaking apart, and moments later, an unknown man appeared. A strange mask, broken laughter, words that barely made sense. At first, people assumed it was only a broadcast accident, but it wasn't. Someone was actually taking control of a live television signal. And the strangest part was this: the person responsible was never caught. So that night, who exactly appeared on television screens across Chicago? And why did he leave behind a broadcast like that? The broadcast had seemed completely normal. Sports news was airing and the anchor continued speaking calmly. The viewers noticed nothing unusual. Then suddenly the screen began to shake. The picture started breaking apart, and the signal became heavily distorted. A few seconds later, a face appeared on screen, or rather, something that only looked like a face. The figure was wearing a rubber mask, while the metallic background behind him shifted constantly. The entire screen felt wrong, as if someone had forced a disturbing videotape directly into a live broadcast. The station immediately realized something was seriously wrong, but the real problem was something else. The station itself was not transmitting that image. Someone outside the network was overriding the signal in real time. At the time, that was considered nearly impossible. To interrupt a live broadcast, the intruder would have needed a stronger signal than the television station itself. This was not a simple prank. Someone had planned this carefully, and whoever it was chose to reveal themselves while thousands of people were watching. The man continued behaving strangely. He moved almost like he was dancing, mumbling words no one could fully understand. One moment he seemed to mock someone. The next, his behavior became completely erratic. And before long, people recognized the mask. It was Max Headroom. At the time, the character was extremely popular in America. A digital-looking face, a mechanical voice, a bizarre, futuristic television personality. But the problem was this: the broadcast was not funny. As the footage continued, the atmosphere became increasingly uncomfortable. It looked less like comedy and more like someone intentionally trying to disturb people. And there was something even stranger. The man showed no fear at all. He knew people were watching, and somehow he seemed to enjoy it. Then suddenly, the broadcast cut out. Moments later, the regular program returned, as if nothing had happened. But by then, it was already too late. People had seen it. And after that night, the same questions kept returning. Who was that man? And how did he take control of a live television signal? At first, people assumed it was only a brief technical problem. Maybe a signal error. Maybe someone playing a joke. But later that same night, it happened again. This time, the interruption lasted longer. The picture was clearer, and the situation felt even more disturbing. During a late-night program, the screen began shaking again, and then the man returned. But this broadcast was far stranger than the first one. He rambled endlessly, repeating bizarre jokes that made no sense. At times, it sounded like he was speaking to someone standing just outside the camera frame. And throughout the broadcast, strange sounds mixed together, short screams, electronic noise, laughter that cut off abruptly. Almost nothing about it felt like normal television anymore. Watching it felt like stepping into someone else's unstable dream. Then, near the end of the video, the footage became even more disturbing. The masked man suddenly began screaming while something struck him from outside the frame. The screen shook violently. Someone could be heard laughing in the background. And then, without warning, the broadcast completely disappeared. Viewers were shocked, and the television station itself could barely understand what had happened. It was obvious that someone had hijacked the signal, but no one could explain how it had been done. The story spread quickly, not only across Chicago, but throughout the broadcasting industry, because losing control of a live television signal was far more serious than most people realized. Eventually, the FBI became involved. Investigators analyzed broadcast equipment and began tracing signal records. But there was one major problem. This happened long before the modern digital era. Online tracking barely existed, and very little evidence had been left behind. The intruder disappeared, leaving behind nothing but radio signals. Investigators later concluded that the hijacker had likely used a powerful microwave transmission to override the station signal, which meant specialized equipment and advanced technical knowledge would have been necessary. This was not the kind of thing an ordinary person could easily pull off, and yet somehow no decisive evidence was ever discovered. The voice was distorted. The footage was unstable. Even the location could never be precisely identified. And in the end, one of the most famous broadcast hijackings in American history remained unsolved. For years, people tried to understand the motive behind the broadcast. Was it political? Was it meant to mock television networks? Or was it some kind of performance art? But there was one problem. Nothing in the footage clearly explained its purpose. There were no demands, no threats, no message. Only strange, uncomfortable, deeply unsettling behavior. And somehow, that made it even worse. People searched for hidden meanings, secret codes, satire, messages buried inside the noise. Urban legends began spreading around the footage. But no matter how much time passed, no real answers ever appeared. Then the internet era arrived, and suddenly the video returned. A short, disturbing broadcast, a masked figure, movements that felt slightly wrong. The footage began spreading again, almost like an unexplained nightmare. And even today, many people react the same way after watching it. Why does this feel so wrong? Not simply frightening, something else. Like reality itself had briefly stopped behaving normally. And maybe that is why the Max Headroom incident has never truly been forgotten. The broadcast ended, the signal was restored, and television programming returned to normal. But that short interruption remained in people's memories for years. An unidentified man, unexplainable behavior, and several minutes of stolen live television. Most people believe television systems are controlled, monitored, protected, that if something goes wrong, someone will stop it immediately. But that night, someone slipped inside the system, without warning, without leaving a trace. And even now, that person has never been identified. Maybe the strangest part was never the broadcast itself. Maybe the truly unsettling part is the fact that someone actually succeeded in doing it. So that night, who appeared on television screens across Chicago? And whoever that person was, they were never seen again. This story ends here. But in the darkness, stories remain. Will you stay for the next one? Dark Case Hub.